Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 more horror movies and series that I highly recommend. This channel is a one-man team. That means I have to do all the editing and everything involved with the channel, which means I'm watching movies or editing pretty much the entire day, every single day, which means I am always wearing earbuds of some kind. And I've tried out so many different brands. So when Raycon reached out to me about sending me a pair of their everyday earbuds, I was really interested. And after 2 weeks of using them, I am really impressed. They fit amazing. I mean, look at this. I'm shaking my head and they go nowhere. I've tried out a bunch of different earbuds and I've never had any feel this lightweight or feel like they fit in your ear this well. They also have active noise cancellation with up to 8 hours of playtime. They have quick charging where 10 minutes equals an hour and a half of battery life. They also have the ability to connect to 2 devices at once. They're really easy to use with touch controls. They're also dust proof and water resistant. But the price for what you get is just wild. They're super affordable. Less than half of competitors, and they come in all these fantastic bright new colors. Also, Raycon offers a 30-day guarantee. So do yourself a favor and click on the link in the description to get an exclusive discount on Raycon's best-selling products today. And with that, let's get to the list. Red Rooms is a 2023 French-Canadian psychological horror thriller. Written and directed by Pascal Plante, it stars Juliette Garapi, Laurie Babin, and Maxwell McCabe-Locos. A model becomes obsessed with a high-profile murder trial.
J'en profite, j'ai un petit mot à dire à ces groupies. Ben, on vous voit. Vous devriez avoir...
So I've been hearing people talk about this movie for many months now, and when I saw that it finally dropped on Shudder, I had to check it out. And I'm so glad I did because this movie's intense, it's stomach churning, really disturbing, very uncomfortable, and yet it doesn't show much gore. It doesn't really show much of anything. A lot of what is so disturbing in this is the audio and then the way it's described. And it's an interesting way to go about talking about some of the subject matter and things that are in this. But it's about this model who becomes obsessed not only with the trial, but with the killer who's on trial. And throughout the movie, you're trying to figure out if this is the actual killer or if it's someone else or what is exactly going on here. And as you go further and further down the rabbit hole, it gets more and more disturbing and uncomfortable. And it has a really great payoff, but in a very strange way at the end. It might be a little confusing, but for the most part, by the end, once you kind of process what you just saw, it starts to click. And at least for me, it gets more complex and powerful the more I thought about it. But this is a very slow moving movie. It's very much about the dread and the buildup. And it just kind of goes one step at a time, leading you towards the conclusion of this movie. But you have to be patient with it and give it time to really blossom into what is really here. But if you enjoy psychological, slow burn, crime horror thrillers, this is one you definitely need to see.
We square. We're square.
The Passenger is a 2023 psychological thriller. Directed by Carter Smith, it stars Kyle Gallner, Johnny Berchtold, and Lisa Will. A man is forced to face his fears and confront his troubled past while trying to find a way to survive when his coworker snaps and goes on a violent killing spree.
There's something about you. There's something fixable. I'm in hell when you were standing there, watching me, waiting for me to kill you. That was the only thing I believed.
Over the last year or so, I've heard more and more people talk about Kyle Gallner, and this is one that's really flown under the radar for him, and one of his best performances. For one, he's more of a main character in this. It's really a focus on two people. Both of them kind of share the lead role, so to speak, in this movie. But he plays such an emotionally layered role in this, and a lot of this movie is about the dialogue and the back and forth between these characters, as one who's kind of the victim, and then the other one who is as the antagonist, but also is kind of a victim in a way when you see and you hear his whole story and what has brought him to this situation. But it gets very intense, really a nail biter. There's some moments in this that'll definitely have you gripping the edge of your seat. But it's really well written, directed, it's well shot. It's an intense, fantastic thrill ride, and one I absolutely think is worth your time. Deliver Us is a 2023 religious horror movie, directed by Leroy Kunz and Crew Innes. It stars Maria Verarati, Leroy Kunz, and Alexander Stinig. When a nun in a remote convent claims immaculate conception, the Vatican sends a team of priests to investigate.
This is the prophecy. A virgin will give birth to twin boys, one good, one evil.
So I know what you're thinking right now. One, you're probably tired of religious horror, and two, this sounds very much like two movies we got last year, Immaculate as well as The First Omen. But you gotta trust me on this one. I'm not just serving up another humdrum, you've seen it before, religious horror movie. This one takes a crazy turn. Yes, the first maybe 20-30 minutes of it feels very similar, especially to Immaculate. But then as it goes, it takes a weird direction, and just more than anything, the characters in this and the way it's presented is what makes it unique. And is it perfect? No. But I think it's very entertaining, especially as wild of an ending as it has. The final act especially, it just gets really unhinged and pretty crazy. But it's really exciting too. There's action, there's like an espionage kind of feel to it. I mean, it really goes in a lot of directions, and I don't want to give that away by saying too much because it's really fun to kind of go on the ride that this movie takes you. But the cast is great in this, the cinematography and set design, the costume design, all of that is really well done in it. It looks fantastic. And this isn't a crazy high budget movie by any means, but it's really well put together. But I think if you keep your expectations in check and don't go into this expecting for a home run, but more so to just be entertained, I think you'll have a great time with it. Twin Peaks is a 1990s surrealist mystery horror series, created by David Lynch and Mark Frost. It stars Kyle MacLachlan, Sherilyn Fenn, and Mad Ching Amick. An FBI agent investigates the murder of a young woman in the small idyllic town of Twin Peaks.
Albert, I hate to admit this, but I don't understand this situation at all. No.
So last week we lost David Lynch, and he has been someone I've really looked up to in the art world for a very long time. He's mostly known for his movies and series, of course, this probably being the thing that he's the most well known for, Twin Peaks, but he was so much more than that. He did amazing music, visual medium art, and that's where I appreciate him as much or more than anything else he's done is his visual medium art and just the way he saw art in general. Because before doing this channel, I was a visual medium artist, painting, sculpture, stuff like that. And just how he saw being an artist and how he saw making art for art's sake, so to speak, in just this very pure kind of way was always so inspiring to me. And so on the list this week, I had to pay tribute to him and talk about this series because I think this is a great time to see this. It's so quirky, it's so unique, it's very much a one of a kind. And all of the seasons, including The Return, are all available right now to stream on Paramount Plus. So I just thought it's a great time to kind of dive back into this because I know there's a lot of people out there that haven't seen this and still need to get turned on to this. It's one of those things that if you've just heard about it or you've seen clips of it, it may not seem interesting to you, but I'm telling you, if you give this a chance, it's timeless. It really is. And that's the thing about David Lynch that I think goes far beyond anything else, is that everything he touched has this timeless factor to it. It is pure art, and it doesn't feel really like anything else. From the look, the pacing, the characters, the way they're written, everything about any project he was involved in just had a very unique flavor. And I don't say it lightly that I looked up to him and respected him and am inspired by him, because there's almost no one that's famous that I really look up to. That's just not how I'm built. It's not how I see the world. Everybody kind of puts on their pants the same, and I appreciate the work of so many different people, but I'm not really impressed so much with the person, if that makes sense. But in David Lynch's case, because of the way he carried himself, the way he treated others, the way he treated art and respected art and made art, it's so inspiring. If you ever get a chance to listen to some of his interviews, I highly recommend it. He is really a one-of-a-kind human. So I just wanted to pay my respects here and thank David Lynch so much for his time on this earth. The Superdeep is a 2020 Russian sci-fi horror movie. Directed by Arseny Suhan, it stars Melina Radovic, Sergei Ivanek, and Nikolai Kovbis. A small research team goes down below the surface to find out what secrets the world's deepest borehole is hiding. This is a pretty slow movie. You gotta be in the right headspace for it, because like a lot of Russian sci-fi horror movies, they're really well done and there's a lot of dread and things like that, but just the pacing is different. It's a different culture and a different sensibility, and so it seems like a lot of their horror movies have a little bit of that more slower burn pace. But I love the whole concept and idea of this movie, because if you're not familiar with it, it is a real thing. Russia really did dig the deepest borehole that's ever been dug, and there was all these rumors of sounds from hell that came from it, and all these different online legends and lore about it. But from everything I know, most of that's not real. But I love that this movie kind of takes that inspiration and takes it even further, because this gets twisted, it gets dark, and I'm telling you right now, the main reason to see this is the practical effects. Like, they are incredible. They're some of the best practical effects I have ever seen done, especially since probably stuff like The Thing back in the early 80s. But the cast do a great job in this. It's well shot. The way everything is set up looks so real, the set design and things like that. It's just absolutely impeccable. So if you're a fan of foreign, slow burn sci-fi horror, this is one you need to see.
I always said it was worth the risk.
I'll get you out of this.
Talk to me! Forgive me.
Europa Report is a 2013 sci-fi horror movie. Directed by Sebastian Cordero, it stars Christian Camargo, Anna Maria Marinka, and Daniel Wu. An international crew of astronauts undertakes a privately funded mission to search for life on Jupiter's fourth largest moon.
Prep for orbital transfer. We are clear of Jupiter's orbit.
Pitching for power descent. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on. Here we go.
I think this might be the most underrated sci-fi thriller horror movie out there, because if you enjoy the found footagey kind of movies that don't have the shaky cam or super low quality film, then this one, I mean, it is so believable. Just the way the cast performs, the situation, the detail that's put into the real science behind this. It isn't so full of that pseudoscience stuff you see a lot of times in sci-fi movies that kind of takes you out of reality, especially if you're someone like me that really enjoys stuff about space and technology and all of that. This movie is pretty believable. Now, that's not to say it's perfect, and it definitely, you have to buy into the fantasy of it, but it does such a good job of slowly unfolding this dread and anxiety and trying to figure out what's going on, and these different obstacles and things happen that they have to solve, but it builds the intensity slowly but surely, and then the crescendo at the end of this movie is just fantastic. So if you're as big of a fan of space and science and sci-fi horror as I am, and haven't seen this, you need to do yourself a favor and make it the next thing that you watch.
What is it we actually do here?
Severance is a 2022 sci-fi psychological thriller series. Created by Dan Erickson, it stars Adam Scott, Britt Lower, Zach Cherry, and John Turturro. A team of office workers whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives begin to discover the truth about their jobs.
My name is Mark S. And I have, of my own free accord, elected to undergo the procedure known as severance.
It's so funny because I could swear that I had recommended this at some point on one of my videos, but when I looked into my records, I hadn't. And that blows me away because this is one of the best new series we've had come out in a very long time. At least for me personally, the taste I have for sci-fi, thriller, horror stuff, this is fantastic. And the second season just started. We're a couple episodes in, and so far, it's off to a bang. It just takes off right from where the first season ended. And it really ended on this really high tension moment. So I've been dying for the new season to finally begin. But it's so mysterious, it's so well acted, it's funny, but then it gets creepy, there's dread in it, there's just this huge mysterious factor, and it takes all these different directions and kept surprising me every time I kind of thought I knew what was going on. It just had another wrinkle and another surprise. It's one of those fantastic series that not only tickles your brain and has that cerebral factor, but it's also fun and entertaining to watch. So if you're one of those out there that have still not checked out this series, it's one that I highly recommend.
Would you like to play a game?
Wait!
I don't want to be sick.
My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To is a 2020 psychological drama horror movie. Written and directed by Jonathan Cortez, it stars Owen Campbell, Patrick Fugit, and Ingrid Skram. The story's about Jessie and her brother Dwight, who have to care for their little brother who has an unusual illness, which forces him to ingest human blood to survive.
I thought you said this was a shelter. It is. Looks like a house.
This is such a dark, melancholy, oppressive, disturbing kind of movie. I'd say it's almost borderlining on depressing, but it goes in a very different direction than you'll expect. It's not your normal kind of vampire movie. That's not what this is. And yet it still gets gory, it still gets disturbing and very gruesome. But it's a dialogue-driven movie, a very much slow burn kind of film. It's a small budget, small cast indie movie, but with a fantastic cast that really do an incredible job, especially Owen Campbell. I was blown away by his performance here and just as much in the movie Candyland, which if you haven't seen that, that's also available on Tubi and it's incredible as well. But for fans of slow burn, indie, dread-filled horror movies, this is one you need to see.
This kind of darkness, do you see it among us here?
The Terror is a 2018 supernatural horror anthology series. Created by Max Borenstein, it's named after Dan Simmons' 2007 novel of the same name, which serves as a basis for the first season. Season 1 stars Ciarán Hinds, Jared Harris, and John Lynch. It's a supernatural, semi-historical horror series, where each season is inspired by different, infamous or mysterious, real-life historical tragedy.
Our men have been out there in unimaginable temperatures. No one can convince me that optimism or confidence is wrong enough.
So I've only seen season 1 of this. I've heard good things about the second season, but it's just tough for me to watch series. I watch as many as I can when I get time, but it's a lot easier to watch a movie than it is for me time-wise to do a series. But season 1 of this is incredible. It's very historical, so it isn't really a horror series, at least for a while. A lot of it feels more historical, like you're watching a historical drama. But then as it goes, each episode, it just kind of builds up this dread and this mysterious quality. And little by little, things start to happen and it gets to become more and more horror and intense as it goes. But it's incredibly well shot, well acted. Everything looks so period accurate. The attention to detail, and especially for a series series, it's just incredibly well done. And the cast, I mean, they are all so good in this. Very believable. It just, like I said, feels very accurate to its time. And so it's easy to kind of feel like you're watching something on the History Channel almost. And so when these creepy supernatural type of things slowly start to become involved, it just makes it that much more creepy. But it's so cold and rigid, you just feel like you're on this ship. They do such a great job of conveying how cold and wet it is, and you could just imagine what it must have felt like to be on this Antarctic expedition. But I think for something that's historically based and meticulous in the detail, but that also interjects fantasy horror elements into it, this is as good as it gets, and one you absolutely need to see. "28 Days Later" is a 2002 British post-apocalyptic horror movie, directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland. It stars Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, and Brendan Gleeson. 4 weeks after a mysterious uncurable virus spreads across the UK, a handful of survivors try to find sanctuary. Hello? Hello? So there's 3 reasons why I added this week to the list. First one is, this is the first time this has been streaming ever. It's never been available streaming. I don't know all the details, but it had to do with rights and this and that, and who owned rights and all of this nonsense. But that's why 28 Weeks Later was available streaming all over the place for, many years, but this one had never been. So now it's finally available to stream. So unless you had the DVD or Blu-ray like I did, you weren't really able to watch this. So that's one. But 2, the new movie, 28 Years Later, comes out this summer. So I feel like this is a perfect time to watch this, then go watch 28 Weeks Later on Tubi, and just get all ramped up and ready for 28 Years Later, because at least from the trailer, it looks like it's gonna be intense and just super good. And then the third reason, this is just a damn good movie. It's not only a great movie though, it's groundbreaking. What they did here just changed the face in a lot of ways of movie making, because this found footagey, grainy, VHS almost quality style was still fairly in its infancy, and to do it the way that this did it on the scale that it did it, it's just, we've seen so many movies that have to thank this one and Blair Witch and a few other pioneers, so to speak, that did that kind of stuff. It just inspired so many filmmakers since. But it also still really holds up on its own. It's intense, it's tragic, it's emotional, it's exciting, it's just a journey. There's so many different directions and emotions that you experience in watching this. And to this day, those shots of the London Bridge and just London in general, empty, no one, alive, bustling around or any of that, are just absolute nightmare fuel. It's also so exciting when you watch this to think about that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, this is how they got their start. And both those guys have become just giants in the industry. They make so many amazing movies, writing as well as directing. And they're also who teamed up to do 28 Years Later. No matter what, I think this movie is so entertaining and a perfect pick for this Saturday night. So do yourself a favor this weekend, pick one of the movies off of this list, grab your popcorn and your candy, and enjoy! And I want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description, or you can become a channel member and help support the channel that way by clicking on that join button down there. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about 10 amazing movies over on Tubi, and I'll see you guys next time.